Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call this special session to order. Encourage you to turn your phone to silent or vibrate, and then let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chris, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Councilmember Myers? Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here. Need an approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
At this time, we would normally ask for citizens' input on items on the agenda, but since it's a single item, let me make a few opening comments. A week ago, we had, or at the last council meeting, we had some public concern about rental inspections, and the council did direct us to hold a special session and get input from the public. So we encourage you, if you have some things you want to say or ideas, to fill out a sheet and give it to one of our staff, and we'll call upon you at the time to make your comments. I think at this point too, we want to get as much input about this topic. And I think we had some good comments made last, last meeting, but like to get some good discussion between the public and the council members. So the purpose of tonight is to talk about the rental inspections and what we should do during this COVID period. So at that point, I'd like to call on city administrator and ask if there's anything you want to make any comments, or Kevin, if you want to make comments. We did give a staff summary to the council as part of their packet. So go ahead, Kevin, if you introduce yourself and you can have the floor.
Hello, I'm Kevin Flanagan. I'm your planning director. And of course, I did include some things in my packet that I thought might be interesting to members. I do want to correct myself. In the last meeting, I said that all the cities on our list had already begun. I should correct that and say that Johnson and Urbandale do plan on beginning in April 12th, but all the other governments had already begun their programs again, some prior to ourselves. But again, I would reiterate that presently we are 650 units in arrear in our program. As I said in my staff recommendation, or my staff notes to council, that we have been behind before. We've been in arrears before, not quite to the extent that I'm projecting that we could be in the example that I gave you in your report, but pretty close to that. And we've also operated to some degree a little bit behind on a regular level over the past few years, of course, and that's related to our capacity with the amount of employees that we have directed to our rental inspections program, and of course also a function of how many new inspections you have, or complaints, and all the other activities that we undertake with our staff. And of course, in the report, I said that my conservative estimate is somewhere around a 6-month period was the example I used for any possible moratorium in my report, and I was indicating it's somewhere around 1,100 to 1,300 units we would feel like we would be at the end of that 6-month period in arrear. Now, given that if there was a moratorium passed, that would be the case during the time that moratorium was in place, yet we would still be doing inspections of emergency or exigent circumstance, requested inspections, inspections on units that had significant alteration requiring a permit type activity, units that weren't occupied presently, maybe new units coming on the market that needed an initial inspection in order to become a rental, and units of that sort. But of course, I don't want to take up too much time with what I've already told you, but I would entertain any questions that members may have.
Any questions for Kevin?
I guess I'll start. So I guess, leading back to the last meeting when this discussion was brought up, and Still concerned, when we look at the public safety aspect of this, of sending people into homes. I know that the governor recently lifted all of the mask mandates, for better or for worse, whatever. I look at and it is one of the businesses here in town we have decided to look at, and I would suspect that as a city, this would probably be the same direction that we would want to go. Wapello County doesn't have a lot in the way of vaccines that have been distributed yet, so that seems to be a little bit of concern, whether the governor has released the mask mandate or not. We do have a aging and a lot of sensitive population here in the county. So whatever direction that we want to go tonight, I would just hope that everybody keeps those two things in mind, and those could be a lot of the population that we're talking about here. You say that we're 650 behind at the moment. If the conditions were perfect, there was no such thing as COVID, how many, if 3 months, for example, how many inspections could we do in 3 months?
My projections are, as I said, conservative, and they include one inspector doing around 6 inspections in a day.
Okay.
6 to 10 is what an inspector in a normal situation, I guess, would probably be able to do. But I'm using 6 in my projections, and I'm using two officers for that. Now, there's a possibility that we built it within our budget that our code enforcement official would perhaps be able to, our budget for next year, I should say, that our code enforcement official would maybe be able to complete training on because there is some desire to do that on a building inspection level. And then we would, of course, have 3 people who are able to do rental inspections at any one given time. Now, the way that we would direct, if that were the case, would be a little bit different, maybe splitting people between roles, and an inspector maybe being able to do more in one day because they were solely focused on that day or for a period of days during the week. But, on a normal level, we're going to operate anywhere from 100 to 250, maybe behind, I would assume, and since I've been your director.
Okay. So in looking at the inspections that you're doing right now, and I know that I'm probably asking an unfair question at the moment, just putting you on the spot. What percentage of the inspections that you're doing now are vacant properties versus occupied properties?
That's a good question. That's not something I can answer for you right now. I can get that answer, but occupied property versus vacant properties that we're doing rental inspections on, the vacant properties are probably going to be a minority. A small minority or smaller minority of that. Some of my people are actually, do you know?
They're estimating about 5%.
So around 5% would be vacant. Yeah, pretty small minority. I would figure it'd be no more than 10% at any one given time. We just don't have that many new apartments being built to be that kind of a place. In a more busy and developing place, you could see half of them probably, because many of them are coming online. But in our case, it's not going to be that reason. So.
Okay. All right. That's all I've got for now.
If it would please the council, why don't we entertain some public comments, and then you might have some questions for them.
I also want to say, Your Honor, that several of my staff members are here. My building inspectors are here as well. If you have any questions for them, they'd be glad to help out.
Yeah, just real quick before bring up anyone else. Just wanted to, I don't know if the council had a chance to review some of the code we have, and the reason why we have some of this is our current code says that we have to do rental inspections at least once every 3 years. And that's where I think this timeline is coming from, of saying we're behind schedule of this imposed regulations.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the exact impetus of this, of the regulations here, but having meetings with the groups on diversity and other things, housing has been an issue. And it's not all landlords. I know there are a lot of landlords that do a great service for the community, but unfortunately there are also landlords out there that don't always care for their property in the best way. And that's where I think maybe some of this has come from, is making sure that properties are kept up to code and that the public is being serviced in that way. Also within this, there is a provision in here that, at least for a short time, does allow the refusal of entry of the inspectors. There is a process in here that talks about that. If entry is refused, director or inspector shall request that the inspection be conducted at a reasonable time, so having some opportunity to negotiate what that is and what the concerns are as far as the refusal, suitable to both the owner or the occupant. And if the request for future entry is further refused, the inspector can at that time or later explain to the owner occupant that they may refuse without penalty entry without a search warrant, or that the director may apply to get a search warrant. So there is some ability to negotiate if there are serious concerns related to COVID or other diseases. Obviously, as an employer, as a city, we have a responsibility, an interest, a duty to make sure that our staff is also protected from these, and so being open to the public, being in a public entity, we do have to take on these concerns. We've taken, I think, every precaution we can as far as personal protective equipment when entering facilities and making sure that we can keep our people safe as well. And so there's a duty that we have there. So I just wanted to make sure that as we're progressing that the public is aware that there are things out there within the code. It's not that we just want to get into people's homes. There's some rationale for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's health, safety, and welfare of our citizenry. Obviously, now, given how many units we do have to inspect, it's an important point to note that if someone did have a problem with us coming in, if we were undertaking inspections normally and someone did have a problem with, there were plenty other units we could go to first, although I don't think that has any real bearing on what our overall policy is going to be from the perspective of what we're looking at here tonight, right? But.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and entertain some public comment? I think I had one from Inez Hill. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Inez Hill, and I live at 13934 65th Street in Ottumwa. My husband and I are co-presidents of the Wapello County Landlords Association here in Ottumwa. And I'm here to oppose resuming physical inspections of our rental properties. We do not feel that the COVID-19 virus has eased, and there are daily reports on media announcing number of people in Wapello County who have tested positive for the virus and the number that have died from it. Our concern is that the inspectors could unknowingly be spreading the virus, and so could the tenants. We know from experience that the tenants have not revealed their illness to us in the past. In fact, some of them are very secretive about it. Our rentals are being serviced by professional workers, so we feel that they are well maintained. We have paid the required inspection fees, so the city is not losing money. And we haven't been having monthly meetings since March of last year because of this COVID. People don't want to attend the meetings, and we can't get speakers. We're not asking for the inspections to be done away with, but we do propose that the city council postpone the physical inspections for now. And I want to thank you for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, just one. So when I was selling my house a little less than a year ago, it was in the state of Wisconsin, right in the heat of COVID. When we had a home inspection, nobody was allowed to be home. The inspector went in, inspector came out. Anything, accommodations like that, that maybe could work, or is it just not having them at all? Have you thought about that?
I didn't think about any accommodations, but the landlord that owns the property is required to be there for the inspection. And
my husband's not doing very well with his health, so it's me. But I'd rather not go in the house. In fact, when I pick up rent, I just stay outside and the tenant brings the rent to me outside because I just don't want to take a chance. And so.
Thank you. I didn't know about that rule or regulation, so thank you.
Well, it would be good to know about some accommodations. We're willing to look into that and,
Thank you.
cooperate. Thank you.
Any other questions for Inez?
I have a quick question, and I'd probably pose it to everybody that comes and speaks tonight, just to get a better understanding of your position. Whether or not we suspend the inspections, or for how long. Obviously, it's not going to go on forever. I'm in favor of suspending them for a short amount of time, or maybe a 30-day look and see how we're doing type thing. But I want to hear what everybody has. My question to you and everybody here is, can you give us some feedback on what you think? Your line of thinking on when it might be appropriate if we were to suspend them, pending we don't know how much vaccine we're going to get, when we're going to get it. Is there a point where you would seem satisfied, having rental inspections taken back up? Just curious.
I think it would help to have more people vaccinated. I'm not vaccinated. I haven't been told not to call and find out because they're going to let us know, and nobody's let us know yet. So I think it would help if more people are vaccinated
Right.
and protected. Yeah.
I agree. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Inez. John, do you want to speak?
Well, she covered a lot. She covered it well. My name is John Conder, and I live at 206 Wall, Hedrick, Iowa. And I have rental properties in Ottumwa, Iowa, have had for 30 years. And right now I have tenants that worked at, well, I still call it XL, but JBS or whatever. And they have contacted COVID. And they don't want me or anybody else at the house. Okay, I mean, they even just mail me the money that they're supposed to and pay their rent and do what they're supposed to do. They're real gun shy. Especially, I've noticed that if they have children, they're super gun shy. And I rent my homes, humbly speaking, are all by the college. So it's not like, I'm renting to people that are hardworking people that pay good rent for properties. And they just don't want people around, the ones that have contacted. Because it makes you, I haven't contacted it, I'm very blessed, but it makes you pretty sick. And that's really all I have to say. Well, I could speak on one more thing. And right now, when you do an inspection, because of COVID, labor rate is, and I am very concerned about the health of people and that, but labor rate is exuberant right now if you have to hire a professional, and materials are just, lumber has went up 100%. Okay, and as a landlord, by the time you make your house payment, you pay your taxes, and you pay your insurance, and you do your maintenance like you're supposed to, if you get 20% a month, you're doing well. And right now, that would, any profit margin, that would just eliminate that. That's all I have to say. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any question you want to direct? Okay. Norman?
We have single dwelling units, and this place, I hate coming in here because I can never understand what anybody's saying. So what I'm saying may be already been touched on.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
Pardon?
I didn't catch your name.
Give your name and
Norman
address.
Higginbotham.
550 South Ransom.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, we have several that work at JBS, and I don't go there unless they have a problem. And I think the health department knows who the bad landlords are, and maybe they should concentrate on them. I've never had any trouble other than just small stuff. We try to put about $2,000 to $3,000 a year into our property. One house, we just put new central air in. This way we try to take care of our properties. I realize there's some that don't. Those are the ones that I'll be concentrated on. I think that's about it. I mean, I have to be over there when you inspect, and I don't really care about going over there no more than I have to. So.
Okay, thank you, Norman. Okay, council, any comments or discussion you want to have amongst yourself or ask any staff?
I'll have a question, or I have a comment. I agree with what you folks have said. I'm concerned about our staff as well as the citizens, and I'm concerned about the spread. I would like to, like Matt said, 30 days or whatever, we start out and then take a look at it again, or 60 days, whatever, I'll go along with any of it. But I think we need to protect our staff as well as our citizens. And if I lived in a rental and the inspectors came around, I don't think I'd let them in. That's my comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. I feel like the health and safety is important on both sides. Obviously, we know that many of our landlords are good, but I do have that concern for the health and safety of people living in rental facilities that aren't up to standard. And so, I would be interested in maybe seeing if there's additional accommodations that could be made, focusing on, particular ones that we know are of the greatest concern, doing, things like that to where we could keep them going, but try to limit the amount of exposure as possible, ensuring that people know that they can decline having that entrance at this time if they so choose, and the landlord at the same time it's in the code but making sure that they're educated to know that that's available, I think is important.
I guess I would say, I agree with everybody that spoke as well. I think Ms. Hill brought up a really good point about vaccinations, ensuring that, we had a better grasp in the county on the vaccinations. The accommodation piece is a fantastic idea in theory. My concern with offering accommodations is how many people are going to exploit that opportunity to not have anybody in the house. So it makes me wonder if that's worth it, if the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak. Mr. Higginbottom brought up the concentrating on bad landlords. I think that's a dangerous road to go down that leads to some possible discrimination type issues that we as a city just don't want to go down. Us going out and trying to label somebody as a bad landlord just seems to set us up for a lawsuit. So, my concern really is we're in a particularly bad point in history, and there's no such thing as business as usual. I think we've seen that from everything from the Bridgeview Center to city operations to the general being of everything. And obviously, we wouldn't be here if we weren't concerned about the safety of the tenants, the properties, the landlords, the city crews. So I guess, looking at where we stand right now, my preference would be to just hold off on inspections, for a vaccination cycle. Who knows how long it's going to take to get the vaccinations here in Wapello County up to par. But at the very least, we know that we're sitting a month out. If miraculously everybody could get a vaccination tomorrow, we're still a month out from when people will be vaccinated. So some logical frame of time, and at least in my mind, we should just hold off on the inspections.
Your Honor, I got just a quick comment, and then I'll be quiet. Final comment would be, as a council and as a Board of Health, our main priority above all else is public safety. And it always has been. And I'd quote a former council member, I won't mention his name, but he always liked to use the phrase, first do no harm. So if we look at this issue about doing harm, what is the harm of us holding off on inspections? Well, nothing really but the revenue that we don't get, which I think we can survive. If we do the rental inspections and somebody becomes infected, then we've not done our duty. And the only way, and like Council Member Rhodes stated, being out of the, putting a suspension on this for a while is not a big deal to me. And it keeps us out of the line of fire. It keeps people safe on the other side as well as our side, as well as our inspectors. And they deal with enough as it is. We're this close. We put up with this for a year and better now. We're this close from everybody having the opportunity, whether they want to get vaccinated or not, having the opportunity to get vaccinated. And really only then are we going to be able to be fairly certain that the risk of contracting COVID is going to be a lot less. And so I would rather just err on the side of safety. And that doesn't mean we suspend them for 6 months. I think something along the lines of, like Skip and I both, said, do a small, 30, 60 day, I wouldn't get too aggressive, and then take a look at it, bring it back to council, have some more input from the landlords about what they're seeing out there, and then we can make a better informed decision at that point. But I think our job is to make sure the public is safe, and I don't want to, have any kind of issues like that on my shoulders. So I'm open to the staff recommendation.
Okay, Phil?
I'd like to, first of all, thank everybody that spoke tonight and thank everybody that came out tonight. This is exactly why, when I came up last week, I said we need to hold off because there are other people that it affects that are interested. Not to say that Mr. Scholl didn't make very eloquent remarks as well, but there are other people that it affects. And I thank all of you for your comments. Mr. Connor, your comments on the labor and materials is something that I hadn't even thought of in relation to all this. You want to make the repairs, but it's going to cost you X amount more to do that and do it in a timely manner if you can get people and get the labor and materials in there. So thank you for those comments. I led earlier with the code. And because what we're really looking at here is the administrative function of staff and trying to comply with the rules and regulations that are set forward in that code. That's an administrative function. However, the council is in charge of the legislative aspect. I'm not aware of anything that says the council could not stay the regulations, the code there for whatever period of time. And that's probably the action that the council would want to take, is saying, we're going to hold off on the code in relation to rental inspections, if that is what you're saying, for a period of time. And unless long-term you're looking to actually change the code, having some kind of stay on that so that staff has the direction and knows we're not being asked to do what's laid out there for X period of time. Because our obligation is to follow the code and to do that in the most efficient and safe manner for our staff and for the public. And so if what I'm hearing from council members, that's probably saying, let's relax the code, let's hold off on that for X period of time. And that's probably where you want to go if that's your desire.
I guess one follow-up to that, for those, the proposed staying it, is if there was, should we put in something to where if there's a complaint that it still be expected? Or I think it's important if we have something for health and safety, when we're talking public safety, if there's an issue with said department, is there something, to be done there?
You mean on the 10th?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I would reiterate, in exigent circumstances and emergency situations, we have complaint calls, new units that are not, or that are yet to be rented, their initial inspections, empty units that have been rented before, not quite, are not occupied at this moment, being inspected. Those kinds of approaches are what we take. But yes, in any instance where there's any kind of an exigent or emergency circumstance, we are required to respond, as a matter of fact. So health, safety, and welfare.
Thank you.
And make sure that, just a side note, just make, everybody can call and complain. I would just ask that we make sure the complaint's, number one, valid, and number two, serious enough to, permit entry to a house like that.
Yes,
Just I mean.
Exactly. And chief amongst our goal set is, fairness, equity. We do not want to create situations where there's even any kind of an appearance of specificity aimed or geared towards anyone. We do not do that. We do our inspection processes based on when units come up for their inspections on 3-year cycle. and we try to get the lowest hanging fruit first, of course, according to how those dates fall out in our scheduling, I mean, so regularly.
Okay, so is there, Phil, I think your point about administrative function and following the code, is there any sense that anybody wants to present a motion to suspend inspections for a short period of time and monitor it, and with the exception for the complaint or unusual circumstances, as Kelly mentioned,
Can
I
we-
think it could be workable.
Just as a matter of protocol, can we do that tonight?
Yeah, it was posted as a meeting that we could take action on, and we've certainly given public notice.
Your Honor, I would suggest, now the example I used was a worst case scenario in the report I gave you, but given the comments of members that we hear tonight, I would suggest maybe a 3-month moratorium so that we don't continually come back over and over with, monthly with the subject matter and then reassess at that point. Potentially.
Yeah, and to your comment, maybe we draft something up to that for the next meeting. We have suspended all rental inspections at
Yes,
the
we have.
moment. So nobody is out there on our staff currently since last meeting. And we can wait another week until council makes an official action on that. But I'd like to get our attorney to maybe draft up some language to suspend our ordinances on that and have you vote on something officially
That would be my preference.
Yeah.
at next Tuesday's meeting.
And it will be suspended as of right now.
They have not been doing, correct.
Since our last meeting, we did suspend scheduling activities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's the direction we'll go then. We'll ask for the written statement to be presented at the council meeting on the 16th after consultation with Phil and our city attorney. And certainly, again, if there's any other input you want to make as landlords, please get a hold of either Phil or Kevin or myself, and we'll be glad to take that into consideration.
And Phil, you're suggesting 3 months, or did some?
I was just suggesting 3 months as not my worst case scenario was, or my conservative scenario was 6 months in my report to you. I was suggesting it sounded like that was a little long initially. Members might have to see 3 months with a review at that point or something.
Whatever
3 months.
days you're interested in, we could draft into there. If it's 90 days or
I
if
think that would
it's,
be reasonable if we keep moving ahead with the vaccinations. That would help us to have a little bit more comfort, I think, too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Is there any other public input tonight from anybody about anything not specific on the agenda? I would like to share with the council, Phil and I have been talking, and I just gave him a summary. There's a House Study Bill 54 that is talking about changing the retirement for fire departments and police departments, and it has some very significant financial implications for our city, not just our city. There are, I forget, 20-some cities that are required by Iowa code to belong to the municipal fire police retirement system. And I think it'd be good to have some kind of a impact statement from administration and finance to help us understand this. There is going to be a Zoom meeting this Friday morning with all the cities who are a part of this retirement program. And I made the comment this morning to an individual, and I think it's worth sharing for the council. Our police and fire do a great job, and I certainly don't want to underplay that, and they're exposed to a lot of circumstances. But we have a lot of city employees, whether that be at water pollution control or the landfill, that are equally exposed to all kinds of viruses, germs, diseases, et cetera. And if we're going to change this for one group of employees, I think we ought to ask the state to consider this for other equally employed people. And I'm not sure, I've read the bill once, and it really raises lots of questions for me as your mayor. And I think things that go on and commit the council down the road in the future are things we've got to pay attention to. So I'd like to have some feedback from staff. If the 16th is possible, if that's too quick, certainly as this bill develops, because it's going to get a lot of attention, because it will really put the pressure on finances for all of our cities that are part of this. So I'll be glad to share a summary with you, and you can read it and see what you think and give us some feedback, because I think it's going to be a hot topic both in Des Moines and with the other cities. So with that, is there any other business? Any other staff? Okay, then I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
So move.
Second,
Thank you, Skip and Holly.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Thank you all, and thank the public for being here.